There is a supreme similarity which exists within all things, between all forces, and between all seeming disparate processes, events, objects, and entities which compose the very framework of reality itself. Despite seemingly significant differences in function and aesthetic properties of a given object, such as physical composition, purpose, relative identification, and other apparent qualities which may or may not be present between all of the members of our universe, it is simply truth that all things are in fact composed of the exact same substance. The amazing ability of this substance, commonly referred to in physics as energy when it is in a freer, loose state, and mass when it is in a highly condensed vibratory lattice, to display an infinite multitude of forms and presence is astoundingly wonderful and a true amazement to the mind of man. We are so fascinated by every incarnation of this substance, although few individuals truly consider the nature of the substance itself when faced with one of its avatars. Today we live in a world which is primarily dominated by images, extraordinarily pervasive mythologies, prejudices, memes, and a dialectic linguistic framework which prevents the simple and accurate transmission of essential information through which any given object in question could be easily understood by all, were it not for the reinforcement of static entanglement necessarily imposed by linguistic dualism. What is happening in the world today? Looking around, it may seem as though violence, corruption, false authority, and death reign supreme over all the affairs of mankind. In our daily lives we are often seemingly forced to make countless choices based upon only a limited number of possible realities, being completely unable to render individual direction without the threat of persecution by the structures of tyranny which impose a finite and external boundary upon every single man, woman, and child upon the planet, regardless of age, socio-economic standing, political power, or intelligence. Indeed, while it appears that we are living in a world of fluid, transitional states, we are in fact caught in an extraordinarily complex and convoluted web of emotional, financial, spiritual, sexual, and personal dependencies upon a social framework which exists solely to stratify, subjugate, and corrupt the very people which compose it. Superficially, it seems as though we live in a world in which one's degree of true personal freedom is determined by whether or not that person is of a high socio-economic standing. We assume that the people in this world who are at the very top of the current financial ladder are the ones who are most free, therefore they are the ones who are imposing the highest amount of control upon the rest of the populace. While it is in fact true that one's financial security in this world does indeed allow an individual possessing a wealth of the commonly accepted currency to possess a certain amount of limited choice solely when it comes to the acquisition of luxurious goods and services which do exist for the purposes of creating a sense of covetous envy and desire in the heart of the individual who sees him or herself as inferior to the other for lack of this good or service, it is not so that one's wealth does free a person from the psychological enslavement of the dominator hierarchy. What is the dominator culture? Simply put, it is the socio-physical socio-intellectual mechanism of compressed societal which seeks to maintain an atmosphere of predictability and controlled direction, and thereby force its collective, hyper-conscious sphere of influence directly upon the hearts and minds of every individual existing within a certain given set of individuals. The dominator culture is not driven by the specific intentions or thoughts of a single individual entity in a set of individuals, but rather, it is the outward expression of the hegemonic subconscious desires which exist within every individual. It is for this reason that this culture of dominion is so attractive and pervasive in contemporary society. There was a time in which the individual flourished and the cultures which bloomed were faithful representations of the individual's love and affections for the absolute reality, which is the supreme state of being present as well at all times in the subconscious of each entity, that which causes the inward desire for peace, love, warmth, and most importantly of all, light. The story of civilization as it has come down to us via the written word of history is at its core an expression of mankind's gradual descent away from the culture of the individuated social collective to the stratified, hyper-centralized world of culture in which we find ourselves today. We can free ourselves from this nightmare